Hello, everybody, and welcome to the One Fear Per Year podcast, where we talk about walking through fear and living our best lives. And speaking of living your best life, Mike Lee, thank you so much for being my guest today. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. I know it's been a quick minute. And I want to dive in and just pick your brain and ask you some things about fear, because I know you've had quite a journey personally and professionally. Right now, tell us what it is that you do, because I know in the past you've worked with NBA players. So I want to get into that a little bit too. But currently, what do you do professionally?
Have a leadership consultancy. So it's keynotes, workshops, and coaching, helping individuals and organizations unlock the power of the present moment.
Ooh. Okay, say that again, real slow.
It's a leadership consultancy where we work with individuals and organizations through keynotes, workshops, and coaching on how to unlock the power of the present moment. In a
Unlock.
word, we're super distracted.
Yes. So unlocking the power of the present moment. And just sneak peek, we're in the present moment right now. So, uh, how do we do that? What's one of the things, as you work with companies and leaders, what's one of the things that you tell them to do to be more in the present moment?
I think one of the first things is really getting them to understand and implement mindfulness and being able to operate with a higher level of awareness so that we can be more intentional in the present. I think, there's Harvard research that shows that we're actually only present 47% of the day. So that means the other 53%, we're either dwelling on the past, our minds have drifted to the future, or we're just distracted because of the era that we live in. And so helping people start a practice and then or deepen a practice.
And what does that look like? A mindfulness practice for you, for instance? What do you personally do to develop and practice that mindfulness component?
For me, it's through meditation and it's through yoga. Those are really my two big practices. But there's also, you know, getting out in nature, anything where I'm not in technology or on technology, uh, really can be helpful if it's done in an intentional way.
See, I knew I liked you, Mike Lee. Because I literally just this morning got back from doing yoga, and I really go for my mental, emotional health. I can just tell every time I go that it draws me back, as you were saying, into that present moment, into a mindfulness state. And then some of the decisions that I have to make or things that have really been on my mind, it almost just eases everything. And I get this clarity that I hadn't had before. So, how did you get into meditation, mindfulness, yoga? What was your journey like to get into that?
Well, I first started practicing yoga because it was a couple things. It was at the time I was still doing basketball training. And so out on the court and very active. And so part of it was injury prevention. That was one of the priorities with it. The other thing was just stress reduction. I was listening to a podcast, I don't know, I guess almost 12 years ago now. And they had a guest on that was talking about the benefits of hot yoga and just the impact of stress on your mental and emotional state and physical state, right? And so it was through that. And then when I got off an antidepressant medication, the withdrawal symptoms were comparable to somebody withdrawing from heroin, and it was the the anxiety and the depression and the fear, literally, that I would experience going through this process was just brutal. And I knew that if I was going to win this battleground that had been created in my mind, because that's what it felt like every day, that I was going to war in my mind. I needed support. And I had in the past, I had been a crisis meditator, meaning I would meditate in reaction to a stressor in my life. Something would stress me out, and then I would think, "Oh, I need to go meditate for 10 minutes to bring myself back into the moment." When I was going through this withdrawal process, getting off the medication, I committed to it, and I saw I experienced moments of just inner peace and presence that have been completely foreign to me up to that point in my life. And so it was really to get out of my own suffering.
How long did that process take of withdrawals from the medication?
Well, there's the acute withdrawal symptoms, which was feeling nauseous and having these create like out of body experiences, and the um what else did I go through? I mean, there were times where I'd be throwing up. Like it was brutal. That lasted like 9 months, and then there was the post acute, which is more so um the like I felt just empty inside. I didn't, I mean, you're active, you work out, you just telling you going to a yoga class. I didn't get a runner's high from workout for 3.5 years. Like I just felt empty inside. And so there was that, and things eventually started to shift, but it was quite a while, about 4 years before I started to feel normal again.
Ah, and how do you find support in that? Because I know addiction to different medications and drugs is kind of a huge thing happening all around us, with people that we may or may not know. So how what's the best way to find support? Because that's a long time. So I could see if somebody starts to do it and then they're just like, "This is taking too long," or and they give up. How do you stay on that path?
Yeah, I would say this didn't exist when I was going through this, but there's a company that actually has been formed by, I believe, a former doctor who went through a similar experience as I did, to help people taper off of antidepressants. And the company's called Outro. I don't have any personal experience with them or any affiliation with them. I found them after I went through this experience, but that would be one place that I would look. Um, yeah.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that just because, um, like I said, I think it's an epidemic of just different types of substance abuse. And then also where you just feel when you're trying to get off of it, there's that fear of, oh man, this is just, I'm going to fail. It's going to take too long. I'm not going to have the support. So I would imagine setting yourself up for success in different ways is probably really helpful in that journey.
Super important. Yeah, taking care of your nutrition, your physical health, like having a sense of safety in your relationships, all those things can really have an impact.
Yeah. Now, talk to us a little bit about your experience with coaching some of the NBA players, and what did you notice in that arena as far as fear? Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. How did fear show up in that environment?
Well, I think all those same things exist. The same fears, the same doubts, the same, you know, I, worries of not being enough. They all exist. I think one of the differences that separates people that are performing at a level like that is all those things exist, but they decide to take action anyways. Right? It's I think that the definition of courage is something like courage is not the absence of fear. It's like taking action despite fear being present. Right? And so I think they experience all the same things, but it's how you decide to move through them is what's the differentiator.
And would you say that having a coach, a mentor, somebody helping and supporting you is kind of instrumental in that process of fear, whether it be on the court or in the boardroom or in your own personal life, like having someone there, has that been something for you in your own life?
Yeah, in both ways, me coaching others and others coaching me. I mean, I think one of the keys to be able to move through fear is being able to have, I brought this up a few minutes ago, but like really to be able to have safe connections and safe relationships. I think when we feel a sense of, lots of the fear comes from feeling like if we fail, then we're not good enough. And if we're not good enough, then we won't be, the ultimate fear is that we won't be loved. Right. And so, whether that's, you're a high performing basketball player, playing at the highest levels of professional sports, whether you're in the business space as a leader, right? Whether it's conscious or unconscious, we all have it. You might say I don't have it, but I would argue that it's just unconscious. And so, um, having safe relationships, especially with somebody that is on a journey with you like that in an intimate way, can be a game changer to be able to help you move through adversity and fear.
Absolutely. And in the past couple years, can you think of a story or something that happened in your own life where there was a fear that you had that you felt very much as fear, but that you decided and chose to take action to walk through it? Do you have any stories like that in your own life?
Um, yeah, I'm just thinking about how to fit one of these into the parameters of the show. Um,
Just give it to us.
I think, I think like one that I could share. I mean, it's older, but I mean, moving. When I dealt with depression really bad growing up in Wisconsin, and it got to a point about 11 years ago or so that I decided I couldn't take another winter in Wisconsin anymore. And I, but the business that I had built was based in Wisconsin. And so it was not a practical thing for me to move all the way out to Los Angeles while I had a business based in Wisconsin. There was a lot of fear and the unknown around what would happen with that. What would happen with my sense, my livelihood, um, my essentially like my job security when I would move. But you know, I think one of the ways that there was an experience that I had about a year before that, where I was standing in this park called Palisades Park that in Santa Monica that overlooks the PCH and the Pacific Ocean. And I got a intuitive feeling that I was supposed to move. Like it didn't really make sense. Um, but moving was, set me down a whole different path in my life that I would have never, and experiences and relationships that I've built that I never would have had if I would have stayed in in Wisconsin, and definitely challenges that I never um, would have gone through, and learning lessons and growth. And but I think one of the ways that we can move through a fear is grounding ourselves in some bigger perspective from the standpoint of growth. Like we can look at it as fear, or we can look at it as a classroom. And I think choosing your perspective while you go through some of those things is really important and can be beneficial.
Absolutely. Yeah, kinda like the reframe of how we look at things. I know somebody was saying, fear is like this energy in your body, and you can choose to call it fear and have the fearful thoughts, or you can go, oh, wait, this is energy, and I can make this mean that I'm super excited, or, because it's kind of a similar type of energy. So having a reframe, a different perspective, seeing that it's for our benefit, possibly for us to grow and evolve and change. And so how was that with that intuitive inclination that you got? I'm sure there's a lot of fear around following that, like your intuitive inclination, even though it's not all lined up for you. How did that go? Was that just something you decided, you know what? I'm taking the leap, like a leap of faith.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing about intuition is it rarely ever makes sense. And so, yeah, I mean, I did. I picked up and I moved, and it was going to be a trial thing, and then it ended up being a full time thing with
And
yeah,
like you said,
but yeah.
yeah, like the amazing experiences, the people, the business, the different things that have come out of that type of a decision. So last question, and there's no wrong answer, but if I were to say, Mike Lee, here's the word fear, give me an exact opposite word of fear. What is that word for you?
Trust.
And expand on that a little bit. Why did trust come up for you?
Because I think lots of times I've all for a while I was always thought like, well, um, the opposite of fear is love. And you can you can make that argument in certain ways. But I think it's trust is what releases us from an unknown future, right? Fear is all we might experience fear in the present moment, but the truth is it's about an outcome that we don't know for sure it's about a future scenario that we don't know for sure if it's going to actually unfold or not, right? And so again, so when we trust, we release ourselves from the unknown, right? And we can step into we release ourselves from the illusion of control of the unknown, right? And then when we can step into the unknown with more safety and connection within ourselves.
Beautifully said. Yes, the illusion of control, like like we really have some sort of control over certain things, and it's like trusting, releasing, surrendering. That is so beautifully stated, my fellow yogi. And I just thank you so much, Mike Lee, for coming on today. And everybody, go out and try a little walk in nature. Maybe try a yoga class. Try sitting for 5 minutes under a tree and closing your eyes, breathing in, breathing out, and just truly experiencing this present moment, because it really is all that we have. And so, Mike, thank you for bringing your presence here to this podcast, and we will see you all next time.
Thanks for having me on.